Hey, let's talk about how to make agriculture, how and why to make agriculture an important part of the climate conversation. So, this is the climate report, and the purpose of it is to actually solve the climate crisis, all things considered. And agriculture is, I think, the single biggest part of it, and it's neglected. When you think of climate change, you think of, oh, we just need solar panels and electric cars, et cetera. Well, that's a very narrow view of what the problem is and how to solve the problem. Because we've been convinced that the problem is all about atmospheric carbon, and that's an important part of it, but it's only part of it. We need to take a holistic view of this. Instead of focusing on a narrow part of the problem and only solving a narrow part of the problem, we need to see the problem in its entirety. Not to overcomplicate things, but just to, we don't want to get 10 years down the road and figure out we've been wasting our time because we've been only focusing on a narrow part of the problem. So I've got 13 items here. Let's see if I can run through those in about 10 minutes. That might not happen, but we'll see. So item number one, food is typically not even part of the conversation. And so it needs to be, because it's very consequential and impactful, and we'll talk about why. Number two, the public has been sold on a very narrow idea of what the problem is and what the solutions are. Number three, the average bite of food travels 1,500 miles. So we have this food system that's designed for profit. It's not designed for people, not designed for taste or nutrition. Nothing wrong with profit on a small scale, but what we've been doing is giving all of our profits to the big companies. So the big companies make profits, and they don't have much competition because we've allowed them to become monopolies. But the average bite of food travels 1,500 miles. That's a lot of transportation cost. Our vegetables and our meats are, the vegetables are bred for shelf life and be tough during transportation, and they breed all of the taste out of them. So item number four, the food that we eat today has 1/3 of the nutrition that it used to. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is, because the way we've been doing agriculture is just you till up everything and you put chemical fertilizers in it, and you only have one crop as far as the eye can see. That's all a formula for low nutrition. If we wanted better nutrition, we would have our foods grown in living soils, and we would have them grown on biologically diverse farms. That is, multiple different kinds of animals, multiple different kinds of plants, and wildlife is not completely out of the picture. That's how you have biological diversity. That's how you have living soils. And that's how you get a lot of nutrition into the food. Instead, the food that we have has about 1/3 of the nutrition that food had in our grandparents' day. Item number five, agrochemical fertilizers and nitrous oxide. So agrochemical fertilizers, here's a direct connection to climate change. Nitrous oxide is a product of nitrogen fertilizers. So nitrogen fertilizers, first of all, are made in a process that requires a lot of natural gas. It takes about 10 calories of fossil fuels to make 1 calorie of food. That seems like a waste. So lots of fossil fuels go into the making of nitrogen fertilizers, and then when the farmer applies them to the field, most of it does not get used by the plant, and what does not get used by the plant, some of it becomes water pollution, and some of it becomes nitrous oxide, which is 300 times as much, 300 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So that it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to use nitrogen fertilizers, but we do. So that's why, another reason why food needs to become an important part of the conversation around climate. Number six, agriculture causes lots of water pollution. So the way we do agriculture now causes lots of water pollution. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And the type of farming that is good for climate is also good for our water quality. because the type of farming that's good for climate, you don't do a lot of tilling, you don't use chemical fertilizers. What's bad for water quality is when you till, you use lots of chemical fertilizers, and that erosion, the dirt goes into the waterways and the chemical fertilizers go into the waterways. Item number 7, tilling kills living soils. So we want living soils. We need to shift from climate stupid agriculture to climate smart agriculture. And when we do that, we'll do less tilling. Tilling is not necessary for a productive, efficient, profitable farm. This has been shown time after time after time. We have scientific studies showing that organic and or regenerative agriculture is just as profitable and just as efficient as the type that we're doing now. But people do the type that we're doing now out of habit, and also because it gets subsidized. You and I, the taxpayer, are subsidizing climate stupid agriculture. Number 8, living soils could absorb water. So, we need living soils. We have a type of agriculture that does not, that kills the soil. Tilling kills the soils. Chemical fertilizers kill the soils. But we don't have to till, and we don't have to use chemical fertilizer. And we could have living soil. If we have living soils, then living soils absorb carbon. That's, one characteristic of good living soil is that it absorbs carbon. We could be absorbing massive amounts of carbon. We could be absorbing massive amounts of carbon, but we're not doing it that way. But we could, and we should. So number 9, what I've already said, living soil could absorb carbon. The carbon, the soils of North America were probably at about 6 or 7% carbon in the beginning, and they've been over-farmed and over-tilled until we have 2% soil carbon or less, and it makes for a type of soil that's just kind of not very healthy. It's the type of soil that does not put very much nutrition into your food. So we need to change that. Number 10, stormwater for hydration, not drainage. So we design our farmscapes and our urban landscapes for drainage. Well, it's like, get rid of that water. Instead, we could design them for hydration. We need to design our farmscapes and urban landscapes so that they soak up the rainwater, so that the rainwater is in the soil where it can do some good. Instead, what we have is desiccation or a drying of the continents. Our land is drier than it used to be. That's a big reason for desertification, is we're designing everything for drainage. We're not designing everything for hydration. But we could, and we should, and we need to shift to a climate smart agriculture instead of climate stupid agriculture. Number 11, food could contribute to local culture, health, community, and family life. It could. So food could be food that's allowed to have seasonality, food that's allowed to have local flavor, local cultural characteristics, that could be an important part of our community life and our family life and our health. It's much healthier to have local food. It's much healthier to eat food that's local and seasonal rather than ship everything from, on average, 1,500 miles away. Number 12, this is all upside, and there's no downside. The only downside is for the big corporations that want to give us junk food that has lots of preservatives in it, or it's bred for shelf life instead of taste and nutrition. And it could be good for our local economy. It can be good for our water quality. It can be good for climate from the standpoint of carbon, in that we're absorbing carbon. It could be good for climate from the standpoint of water, because we could be absorbing water into our ground and having healthy, cooler microclimates. We could do that if we had climate smart agriculture instead of climate stupid agriculture. Number 13 and last, rethink everything. If we're going to solve this climate crisis, we will. I think human beings will ultimately solve this climate crisis, but we won't until we rethink everything. We have to rethink everything. We have to rethink transportation. We have to rethink agriculture. We have to rethink food. We have to rethink democracy because we don't have it. We don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy with elections. We need to rethink our democracy. We need to rethink our economy. We need to know that the economy the economy should exist to serve us. We do not exist. Human beings are not an appendage of the economy. Human beings are not a tool of the economy. The economy should be a tool for human beings. So we have to rethink everything. We will solve this problem, I believe, but we're not on track for solving it right now. So that's about all. Thanks for listening. Give me a minute to click out of this.